Well, what's changed is just the continuing decline of success for people who are cold calling and people who are sending cold emails. You've got years of data that shows declining pickup rates on the phone, declining open and response rates over email. And we're just all inundated with notifications from people that we don't know at all. And we don't see these things like getting a phone call or getting an email as a positive event anymore. We see them as a negative distraction. And so we're actively trying to avoid these things rather than court them. So you're living in a world now where, my ringer is off on my phone 24/7. So you try to call me, unless I have my phone in my hand, I won't even hear it, And I don't answer the phone unless I know somebody. And even then, I kind of mute, end the call, send the voicemail, and just file it away as like, okay, I got to call Olivier back later. I'm in the middle of something. I don't want to deal with it right now. Right? So in that kind of world, how are you going to cold call founders and software executives and really get a hold of them and have good conversations? You can still do it right now, but it's not working as good as it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So fast forward into the future 5 years. Is that going to work still? What about 10 years? I have two teenage boys. In 10 years, they'll be in their early to mid 20s. Maybe they're, founders of software companies. My high school kids do not use the telephone to talk at all. They don't talk on the phone. They don't use email. They barely text. All the communication is in-app, right? So you mean to tell me you're going to be able to cold email or cold call my sons in 10 years to sell them some shit? That's not going to happen. I don't believe that that's going to happen. So, you just think about, well, we still have to do business. We still have to open opportunities and close deals. Like, how is this going to happen? Well, I think it's going to happen through your network. I think the way in will be, shoulder tapping mutual acquaintances, getting introductions, compensating the connector for that. And I think it's a way that is a win-win-win for everybody involved, right? You as the seller, you don't have to cold call somebody or cold email anybody and feel awkward about it. The buyer, the prospect, they get their problem solved, but they didn't have to get interrupted in the middle of their day and deal with some awkwardness by somebody they don't know. They just got, messaged by somebody that they do know and they trust already. And then the connector is like, I got to help two people and I got paid. Nobody's upset with that type of motion, right? And so that's why I think that the time is right, and that's the era that we're entering. I don't think this era has peaked yet at all. I think it's just getting started and has tons of room to grow. I built a few communities previously. So I've been running the Surf and Sales Summit, which is a micro sales conference. Take about 20 people a couple times a year down to Costa Rica. And those people end up kind of forming a small community, and people who've gone before have kind of communicated across groups and whatnot. So that was my first foray, I think, into real small kind of community building and events and centered around networking and things like that. And then, during the COVID era, I started this company called Thursday Night Sales. And, we had like 30,000 people come to these virtual sales happy hours, and we had thousands of people regularly, participating in the community and the Slack channel, and we'd have hundreds of people at every event. So when that shut down, Thursday Night Sales, I've also run a Patreon group for years, I should say, as well. So as I entered 2023, I was going through some changes and was shutting down Thursday Night Sales, decided to shut down the Patreon group and kind of pivot both of those things into this new community called GTM United, trying to replicate, a lot of the success and the things that had worked in these previous ventures. But I was thinking about some sales motion that I do on my own, and how I could further it, and how I could teach other people about it. And it was sort of this referral motion, this thing that we now call go to network. Some people call nearbound. I'd been doing this on my own for a while, and I realized there was a failure with what I was doing. And when somebody would ask me if I knew somebody and could make an intro, and I didn't, I would stop right there. And that's a mistake. What I should have done is gone down the line, basically, and asked a bunch of people I knew, or a bunch of people in my community, hey, I don't know this person, but Olivier wants to talk to them. Do you know them? And I just keep going until I find somebody who says, yeah, I know them well enough, I can make an intro. And then my offer would be, I'll split the commission with you, basically, if this turns into a sale. And so I wanted to run that kind of play, and teach a community how to do it, and basically turn the community into a big referral network, right? So if you come to me now and you give me a list of accounts and opportunities you're trying to open, what I do is I put it in front of everybody in the community. And so now I have, 250, 300 something people who look it up and, see who they know, and try to provide intros and stuff like that to people. So from the vendor standpoint, you're not just asking one person, you're now asking an entire community of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people. If you did this in other communities, hey, do you know this person? Can you make an intro? So that was kind of the inspiration, kind of keep the community stuff going that I was doing, and try to find a way to further this referral motion. Well, you have to do the majority of the work. you know, if you send me a note and say, "Hey Scott, do you know anybody at IBM?" That's like so opaque. Like, well, okay, now I have to go on my own. I have to go look up IBM, scroll through, figure out who I know, figure out who I know that is actually the right type of person in the right department. I have to do all this work. I'm not doing that work, right? So you as a vendor, you have to make it easy on somebody. You need to say to me, listen, I'm trying to get a hold of this person in this role at this company, and here's why. Do you know them well enough to make an intro? Here, you copy paste this message to them for me, right? Like, just do all the legwork for somebody. At that point in time, as a connector, it's easier, way easier, right? So the more barriers you put up, the less action you're going to get from a connector. The easier you make it, the more likely you're going to get them to take some action with it, you know? And same thing with the incentive. If you offer me nothing, how likely am I to try to help? If you offer me 5%, okay. If you offer me 10%, all right, that's probably about average. You offer me 20%, my ears perk up a little bit. You offer me 35%, and I'm like, send me more, right? So put the incentive in line with the level of motivation that you want from the connector, right? You have to find ways to make people take action, because even if you think it's not that big of an effort, like, we have to understand that people are busy, people are distracted, some people are lazy, some people are burnt out. Like, just because everybody can see this is the right thing to do doesn't mean that they're going to do it. So you have to still find ways to make it easy for them and motivate them to take action and do it. I think it's a little bit different for investors. I mean, I think they're same with advisors. They're getting some amount of equity, presumably, right? And in some cases, the amount of equity is really large. You know, if you raise money, Series A, Series B, like I don't know, you've given away 20, 30, 40% of the company. Like those investors have a large stake in your success. So they don't really care about, a couple $1,000s in a referral fee off of a deal. They care about you 100xing your valuation and them having a big payday. So I really don't think you need to incentivize them. But random people in your network, certain influential people who are kind of super connectors in the space, like you should motivate them, especially when you think that your competitors are probably also out there thinking through the same thing and doing the same thing. So let's say there's two companies in the same space with relatively similar products, and both of them come to me and say, hey, can you make an intro to Olivier? He's like the perfect buyer for us. All right, well, one's offering me 10% and the other one's offering me 20%. Which one am I going to be more motivated to try to push, right? The one that's paying me more. Let's be honest about it. In a world where the products and services and quality of people are equal, I'm going to go with the one who's paying me more. Well, you have to think about that when you're putting these things together, You have to understand your numbers and your math and your margins and what you can comfortably afford to pay out. Anything that you can provide that makes it easier for people to know where the overlap is and who you're trying to get a hold of, and I don't have to really look that up. It just like auto generates it for me or something like that, and puts a compelling message together. Sure, tracks all this stuff for me so I don't have to track it. Those are kind of easy, obvious first step ways that I could see this working. Maybe there's a way to incorporate AI in terms of turning these into voice notes or video messages or fun, creative, connecting kind of messages, right? I'm not sure. This, to me, is potentially one of the last areas or the last type of sales motion that will remain solidly human for a while. I can see AI taking over email entirely before it touches on this motion. I can imagine a world where there's armies of avatar-like AI salespeople making all the phone calls, handling all the objections. But this one, I think it's a little safe. There's a little bit of a moat around it. So if you're looking for a way to stay employed and keep your job and prevent AI from taking your job, you have a big network, you utilize the network, you're real good at this very human motion. I think this will last, a little longer than some of the other ways. I think that's the key phrase right there. You just said, I'm starting. That's exactly what somebody needs to do. They need to start building a network right away. You're not going to be able to execute this like referral play, this go to network play, this nearbound play. You can't do it if you don't have a network. So every single seller out there should be setting a little network growth quota for themselves. And every single day, it's like a KPI. I need to connect with and add this many new people to my network every day. So if you're brand new, you should be connecting with, peer-to-peer, other people who are selling, people who are in leadership roles. If you're a VP of sales, you should be connecting with founders and CEOs and investors. And this is on top of connecting with people who are in your kind of ICP that you might be selling to at some point in time. So anybody that you can learn from, anybody that you might hire one day or might hire you, or anybody who might buy from you at some point, these are all worthwhile connections to make, right? And so we need to get over the mindset of, oh, I only connect with people that I know right now and have met before. That's not the world that we live in. You know, we used to live in a world where networks were offline and in person, and it was, you know, who you went to the gym with, who you went to church with, who's on your Sunday footy team. It's like, that's not the way it works anymore. Our networks are all online now. And you not having a network is massively going to impair your ability to succeed in the near future of sales.